It's actually been really, really good. We've talked to
everybody.
Yeah, and we just talked to this one of the army fellows that was out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was the only one in all that made me cry.
Oh, really?
No. Anyway.
Yeah, he would have seen some stuff.
Why do they have a button? How do you start without a button?
Oh, Clay's working something out there.
There's no button on these new things.
Backseat driver.
Yeah. So, Jay, how's everything now? Like, how are you going?
Yeah, we've got the cattle buried, we've got most of the fences up. The cattle have improved out of sight, like from how poor they were a month ago to how they are now. Wendy Cole came and got 25 of my potties and took them to put on her milker cows.
That's so good.
I still had more after that, but that was 25 that are going to have a really good start.
Yeah.
And
so what are you feeding the calves you've got there?
They're on calf crumble and milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I've got to get onto this LiveVoucher thing and have a look about it.
Jay, you don't have to do anything. Someone will find you.
Oh, okay.
It's not but hey, so we're aim that video's recording. We're a bit lined up. Kelly and I were going to interview ourselves, but I've got 2 beers in front of me, which doesn't look real good on camera. So we'll put one away. And I don't know, like we all know each other. I think we all know why you're probably the most important reason why I know that I want to hear from you is because 100 years ago when Camp Draft Central first started, I'd put a post on Facebook, Camp Draft Central does this and that, no one would care. And then one day I put Jay's photo of Jay, I think it was out at Alpha that time, Barry was in the tree sulking, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I took a photo of you and then I put a photo of the Camp Draft Central scores and it went ballistic.
Oh.
And you know why that is?
No.
Because of context. Like a computer program has no context. It's just basically an administration device. But with you, the context of camp drafting and how would you describe Jay? She's a bit like you in my book.
No, Jay, you will go down in history as a legendary bushwoman, and you already are. You'll be up there with the most famous Australian bushwomen. And I know you'll hate me saying that, but you will be.
And that
because people just, if you say hello to someone, oh, Jaye Hall said hello to me.
But it's not a place of pretense, is it?
Do you mean me?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's true. You're very well respected and apart from being good at what you do, you're kind and
Yeah,
anyway.
and that doesn't come cheap. It just comes from integrity and truth. I think Jay's name was before. Well, it was just before, wasn't it? When I come into this about 8 years ago, the Halls were a family name.
Oh yeah.
But then it didn't take long to realise that the Dailies, that's those. That's the names, aren't they? So, and what Jay was telling me today about how long you've had that place up at Julia Creek? I didn't even know they had a place at Julia Creek until then.
Yeah, well, Mum and Dad bought it in 1979, and then Ben and I bought it off Mum and Dad 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's where you grew up, isn't it?
Yep, that's been home to me for a long time. Yeah. I sort of went back after school and worked there and did day work from there, and I was always the one that stayed there, and so it's I know it well.
What happened up there, Jay?
This time? Well, we had 26 inches in 8 days, and we've never in all that time seen the whole place go underwater, and this time it did, apart from the house, but there was not one bit of dry land there anywhere, and and I was at Dibble when it all started. Ben had gone down to Landmark, and I was at Dibble, and we weren't getting much rain here, but we've got a caretaker up there, and I kept hearing of more rain, and I couldn't get a chopper to get up in the air there to get a look because all the choppers were sort of busy, and then or it was either raining or it was too windy. Anyway, Zane Habermann he rang and asked how things were, and I said it's bad.
Hey Jay, Zane is my personal hero.
Yes, mine too. When he and Daniel left, I cried like a baby.
Oh, Blackie.
I had a week with them, and he picked me up. He said, I'll be there tomorrow. And he picked me up, and we went there, and at 12 o'clock, thank goodness, we had hay in the shed, because Zane said to me, have you got hay? Can you get avgas? He said, I'll bring Daniel. And he said, don't wait for any free hay or free choppers or anything. He said, just row your own boat and do your own thing. So I organised some avgas from my sister-in-law in Cloncurry, and jumped in the chopper here with Zane, and we're up there, and between 12 and 7 o'clock that night we put 40 bales of hay out to every beast that was still alive on Caiwarra, whether there was one bull or 3 cows or 2 calves, Ben's workhorses. Everything was so poor and distressed that you couldn't move anything. They were nearly non-comp. I've never seen cattle like it. They were completely out of it. They wouldn't move. The water had only just sort of gone from places so we could find a bit of dry where they were. The poor old cows, they'd all got to where they knew that they should be, like on the higher spots, or that they'd got that hungry. They were starving, their eyes were sunk back in, and you couldn't, it was like trying to reason with a bloomin' 2-year-old. You just couldn't do it, so you just had to feed them where they were. But Daniel dropped the hay down.
That's, sorry Jay, that's Daniel Black?
Yes, Daniel Black. He dropped the hay. Those 2 boys had both done a lot of floods and flying and stuff like that. And he had the quick release for the hay and with the strap on it. So he'd release it. Zane would put me down, and I'd get out, and because I knew the place, so I was spotting cattle and knew where to take Zane. So then Zane could call up Daniel and say, bring a bale here, take a bale there, go north, go south. We just went one side first and sort of found cattle, and wherever they were, we just fed them. And Zane had put me down to take the string off and the strap. And I never ate I'm not very good in a chopper. A blooming sight of a chopper makes me sick, so I hadn't eaten for 2 days by the end of it because I was dry reaching. But if I was dry reaching, nothing was coming out. It was only if I ate something that made it a bit more not very pleasant. But
sorry, Jay.
Yep.
What day was that? We're referencing most of these stories from the Friday of Tamworth. What day was this?
I think this was Thursday.
That was the 8th.
So,
Yes.
Jay, you know where the cattle were,
Yep.
Because it's really flat at Caiwarra, isn't it? So, were they still standing in water, or had some of the water subsided, or?
Yeah, some of the water had subsided by then, Kellen. And yeah, it does seem really flat, but there's sort of some undulating places, and there's some ridges. There's a big ridge in one paddock where all the red stud cows were, and poor old Zane, had to shoot 35 cows along that ridge. He dropped me off so I didn't have to see it, because I love those cows, and I know them all well. And there was but they were on the ridge, and then they were standing in water, and then they were starving, so they were trying to go off and find something. There was nothing to eat, and then they were bogging, and we couldn't get to them in anything to get them out, and you couldn't do any. The most humane thing to do was to put them down and feed what was standing up. Like, we even fed 3 calves where Zane had to shoot the mothers, and then a couple of days later we went back to that bale of hay, and the calves were still there, but there was no water there, and so we caught them and put them in a wool pack and slung them home under the chopper. And then we found another 3, so we did the same. But that was a week that Zane and Daniel and I just every day. Well, the cattle that very first day, they just were, they just, like Zane had to actually put them, when I got out to get the stringing off, he had to, they didn't, and our cattle recognise, hey, they've all been fed hay, they're quiet, you know, but he had to actually turn their heads and put them on hay. They were so out of it that they didn't even realise you'd dropped hay there.
So Jay, you guys have got a Brahman stud.
Yep.
And I mean, you know, I know you guys, you camp drafts, it's a bit about cattle, but what happens with the Brahman? I know they've spoken about Brahman sulking.
No, these weren't sulking, Clay, they were starving.
And is that stress that ultimately, do you think, killed them? Because there's reports around that people had just hundreds of cattle die and there was no water to be seen, you know, like... Their legs were that swollen up, right up to their brisket. Their legs were like that elephantitis. They, from standing in water. Oh.
Yeah, it seems stupid to say that they were perishing in a flood, but they were. They were starved. They were perishing. They wouldn't. But the next day, after we fed everything, the next day we went out early again and checked what it eat. Like, they were so shrunk and they were so exhausted. They'd have a little bit to eat and then they would lay down, some of them in the hay around, you know, but you could reason with them, that, because then you had to slowly try and get them to water. Like, had to try and, there were bulls there, young bulls, but I cut the fence and got them out onto the main road. And then, I don't know, it's only a couple of k's from that end of the place down to some little gill guys and some shade. All their skin was cracked, all the hair was falling off, like they could barely move, they were so poor, they were weak. And it took me 2 days to walk them down. I used to walk them a little bit, spell them, you couldn't get them to go and water out a channel, you know, the water in the channel, because they were too weak and they were worried about going in and bogging. And it didn't matter how thirsty they were, they'd just stand there, they wouldn't go down, and so I carted water out to them. So they drank, they always ate and they always drank, and they wanted to live. They got through the worst of it. They reckon they wanted to live, but if we hadn't have fed them that day, we would have lost a lot more cattle.
They go into shock, don't they? And and they don't. They're like cattle with 3 days, I suppose, Jay, aren't they? They get that where they just don't know what they are doing. Like Cole Blacklock said to me one day, he said, "I've got cattle here that don't know they're still alive."
Yeah. They were just complete zombies, eh? They were just completely. They were completely like. Even some of them in their own, like a lot of them were washed out into different paddocks. We found some that were next door trying to come home, but they were perishing on the fence line. So Zane put me down and I just tied the wires down and like the barbs down to the bottom of the post, and I just walked around them and they walked back over the fence and came home like they knew where they wanted to be. But just complete and utter zombies. But once they got a little bit in their bellies, they were different. It was like it sort of gave them a bit more. They had hope. I think they'd nearly given up on hope.
Well, it sounds like to me instant PTSD.
Yep.
You know about that hope. Jay, I loved your post on Facebook where you had that photo of those few cows under the tree with the hay, and you said you talked about your happy place.
Yep.
Yeah. Was that really important for you to go there and spend that time with them every day, just to give you a bit of hope for your future?
Oh, it still gives me goosebumps now. Kel, like everywhere you went on the place, there's dead cattle, there's fences down. All that first week, all I did was try and save cattle, look after cattle. Everything else was sort of irrelevant. What was happening with fences, what was happening with dead cattle. But with those cows there, we'd lost half of them, and I'd got some potties, but you couldn't see where the dead cattle were there. We'd put the fence up just along there, and you could go in there and just sit there. The calves had come up to the bike, and it was just like, yep, we're going to get there. You know, it was like they knew you'd come to help them. I don't know if that probably sounds silly, but it was.
Oh, no, it
and I
doesn't.
just thought, like, yeah, I just gained a whole nearly. I always, you know, I respected that. I gained a whole new admiration for the cattle, like that did survive that, because I really don't know how the ones survived that did survive, apart from us feeding them. But gee, they only just hung on, eh? And that little happy place like that, you only need to spend 5 minutes there, and it gave you a rejuvenation to go again. Yep.
Yeah.
You just mentioned
Jay, you know the other thing I reckon, and I'm not sure if I said it to you, but I know I talked to Col Blacklock about this, about how fortunate we are to be part of the camp drafting community, because it's a small world in that community, isn't there? And people who don't have that network of friends must have suffered more even than you did, because you had friends that came from, you know, near and far to help you, like the helicopter pilots to start with, and then you know, other people that came with feed and that. So
just rocked up there to help for 2 weeks, sort of thing, to fencing for 2 weeks for nothing.
Yeah, and you just seem to have a lot more friends because of what we do, don't you? Like,
yeah, and everyone knows what it's like, Cal. Hey, you know, in that circle, they all know, they've been there before, or they've seen it, and
well, I understand how you feel about the home, your home, which is so much more than, you know, a block of dirt or you know, the 4 walls, and they know how you feel about your cattle. Like it's something that gets into your soul, isn't it? And Jay, you know the other thing that resonated so much with everybody, and I hope I can talk about this without crying, but the letter that your kids wrote. Oh my gosh.
She didn't want to interview you because she was worried about just being a big sook, she said.
When we thought about you, I said, I don't think I can do it.
Oh God, I thought I was being tough till that came.
Gosh. But they, you know, they get it, and they,
it's like a conversation we have with our kids about a lot of things. I mean, you can't just gloss over the fact that, you know, mum and dad might be struggling at home. Could be any reason. I mean, this doesn't discriminate, does it?
No, not at all.
Anyway, Jay, we'll let you go. Clay's got to get on a plane.
Well, look, I want to talk though. I mean, this thing's going to go up on unabridged, just as is. Like, I think, Jay, that resonance that you have about this. Well, when Kelly first contacted me, it was like, well, what's the story here? And then after talking to Leaky, and now especially talking to you, what you're talking about today, the shared adversity. You know, like everybody's in the same boat. Like from here on in. That was my question to Jade about the airport. What happens with the bank manager? And you did say that. What's your bank manager's name?
Gus.
What was that story about? Just don't worry about it today. We'll figure it out.
He rang a couple of times up there, and I only got to my phone if it was close. I was either in the chopper, or I was rolling hay, or I was slinging hay, or walking cattle, and he rang twice, left him, and then eventually the third time he left a message, and he knew that I was up there somehow. And he just said in the message, he said, I can't seem to catch you, but he said, you just keep doing what you're doing, looking after the cattle. He said, and I'll look after things this end. When everything slows down, everything's right up there. He said, when you get to town, we'll just come and we'll have a talk, and we'll sort things from there.
And how did that make you feel in that instant, Joe?
Well, I felt relief, actually, to be honest, because I was thinking to myself, I didn't even know how we were going to pay the chopper pot, pay Zane and Daniel. You know, and I'd said to Zane, I said to him on the way over, I said, I don't care what this costs, Zane. I said, I'll find a way to pay you if I've got to bloody, you know, take out a loan to do it. But the main priority is to save, you know, get feed to the cattle. And it just, when my bank manager had that understanding that he pretty well just said, keep doing what you're doing, because every one you can save is one more down the track, isn't it?
Well, it is,
know?
and it really is money in the bank. Like that's as a business owner, when you're explaining today, like Leaky touched on it last week, it's not the first 6 months, it's when the next 6 months go and there's no cash flow. So, Jay, just Can you explain to me again, like, you know, I'm morbidly curious as a rule, but when it comes to business, how does the cattle industry in Queensland work? Did you say there was two times a year you pay your interest bill?
Yep, we do. We pay it in June and in December,
And what does that actually revolve around? Calving or weaning, or how does it work?
Selling cattle sales like weaning. Well, we've got young bulls. We usually sell young bulls sort of early in the year, and then some later in the year. So you've got some going in that first half of the year, and then you've got some going in the second half of the year. And Ben's contracting.
Yeah.
He usually starts that in April. So
But Kenobi now, like, that's up the north in the Gulf, isn't it?
Yeah, and they've lost a lot of cattle up there.
So, I kind of twinge with me. It's not a 14, 15 man contracting job. It's one man in a chopper now looking for anything, isn't it?
Pretty much. I doubt he'll have any work there. He's still got some pretty well guaranteed at Thorntonia, but it just won't be half the work of what he normally does in the year.
So another really interesting point you said today was about debt. Like, I don't have a lot of debt. I've got personal debt, but the business is clear, and that's pretty good. But debt's debt, isn't it? If you've got it, the size of it doesn't seem to sink in. But like you said, these banks are very, very supportive. And I'm not going to say at the moment, I'm not going to say that their intentions are that they're going to come along. But you said today, which made it pretty simple, that it's still money that's not yours. You still have to service it, don't you?
In the end, you've still got to pay that money back at some stage. Like, we don't, eventually, I don't want to just leave a great big debt to our kids. Eventually, interest rates are going to go up. Debt's going to get harder to repay. None of us have got hardly any number 8 cattle left, and hardly any cars left. A lot of cars got wiped away. Like,
what's number 8? What's number 8 cattle, Jay?
They're the young cattle. The young cattle really got knocked around with the cold at the end of it all.
No, but
like last year's.
So like
cattle.
we've got a pretty big audience now that don't know the cattle industry. So what's the number 8 technically, Jay? Do they have a brand on them, or is it a year thing?
It's a year thing. They're only like 12 months old.
Oh, and this is your cash flow, isn't it? This is what you're going to sell to service your debt, and basically.
And that's why, Clay, it's going to keep going. That's why it's not just here and now. That's why it's for years to come, because those number 8, your young cattle, are what you're selling next year. Our young bulls, our number 8 bulls, should have been selling, sometime this year, even later in the year. They would have been sold, and then a lot of the calves are wiped out. So you don't have many to brand this year, so you got nothing to sell next year.
And that completely clinical, matter of fact, like the sun rises every day, that money you still got to pay back. It's not gonna go away because you don't pay it back. Like, interest is negligible. If there's zero interest, that just means there's not extra money to pay back. But the initial lump sum, it can't go any other way, can it? Like,
No.
And, Jay, this is what we're trying to do too, like, just create awareness around this. Isn't going to go, the first 6 months isn't going to be the worst, is it? In terms of your financial situation. It's going to be, the next 6 months and years ahead. So this is the point we really need to get across to not just the banks, but people who don't have that understanding, so that they don't forget, and they realise that this is going to be, and you're going to need ongoing support in years into the future. And you will, like, you've got a lot of people behind you who are making that happen, and just keeping that awareness,
we've already had people offering to put cattle on our place and go do deals, go shares, stuff like that, but the grass hasn't come away that well. We're still dry here at Bibble. We've got cattle on a dip, so really we can't.
Sorry, Jay, where's Bibble?
It's at Muttaburra.
And you had no rain?
We've had a little bit of rain, Clay, but it's been in drought for 7 years. And we had 3 inches in that time. We're up there had 26 inches.
Yeah, right. So it's really the tales of the two stories. It's all drought one side, and then this flood event comes along. Like who said that bloody Normanton, they got all that flood water, but they got no rain? It was like it's like a flooded drought.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jay, going from here, I mean, like, I think everyone gets the gist of what we're doing with Kel shining a light on something, and we've worked out there is, like, everybody knows the what, but it seems to be a lot of how. Like Margaret Thatcher has a famous speech where she said, "Don't tell me what, I know what, tell me the how."
Yeah.
And while the how probably has eventuated quickly in that immediate reaction to the disaster, what's the how going forward? Like, you know that, what did you coin Jane as when we started? The Queen of the Bush, or what was that?
Legendary bushwoman.
What's a legendary bushwoman? And without
Jaye
any,
Hall.
without any pretense, what's your outlook? Like from Jay's outlook, not on behalf of the community, which is, I think, the Bush's biggest problem is that they're that stoic. It's almost a detriment to them. But what's Jay's outlook on her own future?
Well, I think you got to bury the dead cattle. You got to get your fences up, and we've had a lot of help doing both of that. And so that's the here and now sort of thing. And like my dad said to me, he said, if somebody wants to help you, accept it. If they want to do it, just accept it.
Right.
But once you've got the cattle buried and the fences up, you can at least, in your own mind, you can move forward. Until you do that, you can't really move forward. But you just got to move. Then you just have to, 1 foot at a time, do whatever you can see that's going, and everybody's deal is going to be different. There's already people selling their places, adjusting their places. At the moment, we're just shuffling cattle around at Bibble, putting some on Caiwarra. We've sort of found what we can on Caiwarra, and we've got most of the fences up there now, just from the sheer help of the people, volume of people that came to help us. We'll
just get on with it.
Yep, we're going to go
Jay,
back there and brand the car, what cars are there at Easter time, and go from there.
Well, look, I'm a big fan of this long form factor. These are basically conversations without boundaries. Podcasts. I like a podcast called Mark Maron. It's called WTF. It stands for what it stands. And I was telling Jay at lunchtime is that he interviewed Barack Obama in 2015, and Mark Maron, the interviewer, said, "Well, Mr. President, how do you measure success in a really hard way when you're trying to get diplomatic bureaucracy through? When you're trying to actually achieve something?" And he said, the way I learned really early on was that I have to look at every day that something's just a little bit better than yesterday. Like, it doesn't have to be much. It could be a phone call, it could be a meeting, it could be an encounter, it could be a bill passing through the Senate. But he said that journey of incremental improvement is what he focused on. And I think that if anything's resonating true now is that we've had a huge big response. It's amazing when people need to scramble, like we're reactive. But now, I think more than ever, people have to, like you, like that's the inspiration I'm getting from your story, is that you can already see just a little thing you're doing today will fix it. It's just the only thing is this fix it isn't, it's almost infinite at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah. We've got a person wanting to come next week and buy 20 young bulls from here at Bibble. I just think, that's going to help. That's really going to help.
And I said to Marcus today, because a lot of these fellas, or families, they find it difficult to accept monetary monetary help, but. What you all have to remember is that if we were in the same boat, you would want to do that for us. Yeah. So you need to accept what everybody's trying to do for you, and be very, very, not feel bad about, and not be thinking, well, somebody else is worse off than me, so go and see them. But yeah, we just.
Well, what did your dad say again? We've got to run, but what did your dad say again, Mr. Daly?
Yeah, because I was feeling terrible. I said to Dad, we're never going to be able to repay all these people that are helping us. I said, I'm always a believer though that, things that go around, they come round, and one day we might be able to help in some different way. But Dad said, at the moment...
Gosh, I hope he can't help us in the same way.
Not in the same way, Kel, no way. I never wish it upon anyone. But there might be some little thing that's important to you that one day we can help with, hey?
Yeah. And,
but
Jay...
even... it's never forgotten, put it that way. Like, you never forget a good thing that somebody does for you. But Dad did say to me when I was talking to him halfway through it all, and we had people, wanting to buy us some fencing gear and wanting to do this and wanting to do that, and I just said, oh God, it's they're just doing all this stuff for us, and he said, just sometimes, he said, you've just got to accept help from the people that want to help you, and just take it graciously and accept it. And I think that was it's hard to do. And I know he'd find it hard to do, but...
Look, if there's ever an excuse, it's now, isn't it?
And Jay, I think one thing you really have to remember is that the people that are helping you they feel good for doing it, and they get a lot of pleasure from being able to do that. So you just remember that.
Hey,
and
Jay,
that's the
they
repayment.
want to help you. They want to do it, so don't turn them away. They wouldn't offer. If they didn't want to help, they wouldn't offer.
Yeah.
Hey, we better run. I might have missed my flight. My wife would kill me. But since I can't see you, I'm going to give
I may kill him.
big sloppy kiss for Kelly, because if a legend of the bush calls the other legend of the bush, well, what's that old saying? You women are awesome. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, Jay. Thank you.
Thanks, Kel.
Thanks,
Thanks, Clay.
thanks, chicken. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.